Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Boxing Day edition. There are loads of games that will be going on during the show, kind of overlapping all sorts of different things. So if you're at home watching games, listening to us, join the conversation, join the party. Join us on Twitter for some Thursday thoughts at Soccer Down here. Seen Tottenham take a 2-1 lead at home against Brighton. I think I don't know if it'll be the talking point coming out of this one, John, because it looks like Tottenham's going to be okay. But we've had some VAR offside shenanigans from the first half that people have been discussing.
Yes.
Sure, I'm sure they've been discussing it rationally.
Sure, depending on your definition.
Definitely in the holiday spirit.
Yes. All the words and verbiage have been clean.
Okay. Which ones have you been looking at, by the way? Because
sorry, I was in hashtag sarcasm font early on Boxing Day. Folks have been bent out of shape.
What have they been bent out of shape about?
Specifically, the more I look at this, and I'm going to go back in the timeline, I had more people who were complaining about the usage of VAR than anything else.
The usage of it? It's a goal. There's an offside decision. It's going to get checked. Yeah. Like, it's a goal. Yeah. It's going to get checked, period. Like, that. Yeah. That's just... Are we still confused by clear and obvious on offside decisions? I've seen that pop up a couple times. Like, it's part of a goal check. It's not a clear and obvious situation. That's a judgment call. This is a yes or no call.
Mm-hmm. Here's one example. Harry Kane just scored, but VAR disallowed the goal because his armpit was offside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think technically his armpit. It's probably the part of his torso that is right next to his armpit. But anyway, sure, yes, and
people are complaining that the call was made because his armpit was offside.
Okay.
Exactly. Was a part of his body offside?
A part of his body that can play the ball, and that's why when you say armpit, it's technically. I mean, if it's touching the arm part, then no, that would not be a playable part. But if it's the torso right underneath the armpit, whatever section of the body you want to call that, above the ribs, below the armpit, whatever, fine. You get the point. You understand us.
And also, folks are talking about his right boot also being possibly offside in that whole process. But for me, I look at this. It's a goal check. And you have part of his person offside. Therefore, under the current laws, rules of the game, he's offside. Goal not to be allowed. For me, it's an open and shut case under the current laws of the game. I mean, people are getting bent out of shape about the usage of VAR on a goal check. Last time I checked, if you're mad, then change the rule. And we got into this discussion 2 days ago. If you're mad about something, don't get mad about how the rule is implemented under VAR. If you're mad about something, then focus on the rule itself. Don't focus on don't shoot the messenger here. That's, I guess, my basic point in all of this. Don't shoot the messenger for relaying the message. Change the message.
Well, a lot of people think that they're mad at VAR when honestly it's the offside law in the laws of the game that's the issue for a lot of people. It's just the fact that VAR now gives you the ability to see things that you weren't really seeing or focusing on or zeroing in on when you were just using the naked eye, and even when you started using replays on TV but they didn't decide anything, you might not have seen that. Well, now you have the technology to be able to drill it down further and be able to see it. Is it exact? No. This one, look, there's really not much of a complaint. Like it's far enough. He's offside. It's very, 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 very close, but he's offside. And in the past, would that have been allowed? Maybe. would it have been flagged? Maybe. That's the other thing is how many times in the past did we see, offside decisions being flagged incorrectly either way. On if it was really onside, they call it off. If it was offside, they call it on. It happens. And this gives you much more of an ability to be correct because you can see it and you should be getting these right. So you're getting them right, and now we're complaining about getting them right.
Yes.
That's the issue. That's the problem here. Because if that had been flagged offside in live play with no VAR, people would have been yelling about it. Oh, he's on. See, you can see he's on. But he wasn't. They got it right, so what's the complaint? That's the issue. The actual offside law, Trey Joyner, who was listening the other day, chimed in. He said, I've always thought it should strictly come down to the foot on the ground. If you are physically on the field ahead of the second to last defender and you're attacking half, you're in an offside position. Not about torsos, not about feet in the air, but the foot on the ground is what decides it. It'd make it easier. It would act, the foot that is further ahead that is on the ground, it would make it easier to call. Because then it's just pretty much a straight comparison. I guess you'd just be comparing feet then. The only thing that comes into play is just that you can play the ball with your head or chest or what have
that's
you.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
That's the only thing that is going to be difficult for people to go with that. It makes sense. Logically, I get it. I think it probably gives a little bit less of an advantage to the attacker as the way we said before, where we basically flipped the even is on to, make it a little more of a larger window for offside, since people seem to be upset now that narrow calls are going against attackers. But I think that's going to be the only thing that people would complain about is the fact that if you're going by the foot, if the guy's leaning forward in the head, and I think in a case like the Harry Kane one, it's not as big of a deal. In a case where it's a decision 30 yards from goal, it's not a big deal. But if it's one where it's a cross and the guy's leaning forward and gets his head on the ball instead of his foot on the ground behind him a little bit, that's the one that I don't think maybe would work with this. I like that we're having the discussion, though, and I like that we're trying to figure out a way to make this better. And I hope it's something that IFAB is doing just because it's all different now. It's a new world, and it's something that commentators were discussing a little bit after the Harry Kane one. The commentators, I thought, handled it pretty well. They explained it pretty well. The video, when you isolated it, it wasn't as close as some of the other close ones we've seen. There is a little bit of a gap there between the lines that they draw, and he's offside. It's very, very close, but he's offside. But they talked about potential changes to the laws of the game and a very short discussion in the run of play about it, which is good. I'm glad that we're getting past yelling about back in my day or yelling about it's so close or being wrong about clear and obvious or those types of things. It's good that we're getting to the next stage of, all right, this is the world we live in. How can we make it better and make the game feel the way we want it to feel, where we don't feel like something like that's unfair? This one I don't think was unfair. I think it's off. It's just really close. Others where it's, it looks like it could be within that margin of error. It's like the, tiny sliver of the boot, stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, I get the feeling of that being a little off. So let's actually get past yelling and being outraged and work on making it better. And I hope this is something that IFAB's doing as well.
Yeah, and to the point when Coach came in and was discussing things about feet, then you brought up the point about other body parts, and that was what I was going to bring in as well. It's like, what if he brings in chest for control and those kinds of things? And
that'd be the only thing that would make it difficult. I'm okay with judging it by feet in the sense that it makes it easy to judge. It's very simple for things to be decided. It makes, I think, the AR and the VAR's jobs easier. Sure. the playable part of the body is going to be where it gets tricky. It does, in a lot of ways, though, create that margin of error in some, because people are only so big. I mean, I don't think you're going to get it called with a guy's foot on the ground where he is fully stretched out, like flat, and he's 6 foot difference. So that's good. Maybe that's how you create your margin of error. You go by the foot on the ground. Not opposed to it. It's one that when Trey sent that over, I saw it and I was like, I'd like to see it play out. And that's where I'm at with a lot of this discussion about how to change these things. You do have to experiment with it a little bit and see it. And maybe that's going to be in, a series of youth tournaments. Maybe that's going to be in other tournament action, preseason tournaments.
I was going to say preseason stuff.
Preseason stuff, but I think this is where you can use like U19 leagues and in the United States Development Academy or tournament play or like a showcase type of play. You need to get some data on it. And I hope, again, this is something that is being considered as to what can we do to make it better, and then how can we test it? Because that's going to be the next step. I mean, all of it is a little bit of, all right, we think this would work, but would it really work? Would it really create the change that we're looking for?
And true to form, in the Tottenham match as we're going, Moussa Sissoko has now given himself another senseless yellow, and he's suspended from the next match.
Well, yeah, there was lots of pushing and shoving and handbags and such, and it was a little silly. But that's what happens.
Really cool note from Emery Russell this morning before the show started. He says he's currently repping his new SDH sweatshirt Santa got him.
Very nice. Santa's pretty cool.
Yes. And we've seen those in and around the United States in various and sundry places. Marshall's photo was a part of that. But considering what today is, Emery's question on the board said, do either of us think MLS could have a national holiday where every team plays on the same day, like Boxing Day? For him, he thinks Independence Day, July 4th, would be perfect.
It's kind of been that informally. And, I mean, I think back to July 4th where there have been games and it's been a big deal. It felt like MLS was really hyping that up for a while, making sure everybody played on July 4th, making sure certain teams had home matches on July 4th. Colorado, for example, like in the early days of the Rapids, when they were at Mile High and then Invesco Field, they did the home game on July 4th with big fireworks display, and they draw huge, huge crowds. And it was a big deal. And I don't know why you'd get away from that. I mean, sure, it gets a little awkward sometimes when July 4th is on a Tuesday, and you've got to figure out your games the weekend before. But Boxing Day does the same thing in the Premier League, and they're able to manage it. So July 4th matches, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a day that used to be like baseball's day. July 4th was like the big day of the summer for baseball. Well, baseball's not what it used to be.
Nope.
I think soccer could really grab it. Really, really take advantage of that. I think it'd be very cool if they did. We do have Atlanta United playing on July 4th this year. It's a little odd. It's a 5:00 game at the Benz. That one surprised me when I saw the timing, and I'm wondering if there's other stuff going on. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is it like a 2, a 5, and an 8 maybe? And that's the middle game on a possible triple header or something for TV?
I don't think so, but even still, like you would think with the crowd in Atlanta, you'd probably want them in the nightcap and do fireworks afterwards. But there are a lot of longstanding fireworks events in downtown Atlanta, so it does kind of work out, honestly, in a lot of ways. Where games at 5 will be over at 7. By the time you get out of the Benz, 7:30 or so. plenty of places to go to in the immediate vicinity, grab a drink, grab a bite to eat, hang out, watch some fireworks downtown, good to go. So that part's kind of cool. It's not immediately after the game that you're going to get the fireworks, but you'll be able to get settled and stay downtown if you want to. So maybe it works out for the best. In a lot of ways, it probably does. People are a lot smarter than I am when it comes to scheduling. I'm sure that played into it. This year, it does work out that July 4th is on a Saturday, and it is an ESPN game. It's the first game of the day for MLS games on the 4th. Atlanta and D.C., July 4th, ESPN. You've got Montreal at home on July 4th. That's probably a miss in the scheduling, guys. Come on, guys. They're playing Philadelphia. You could have had that in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Saying it's Philadelphia. It's July 4th. I mean, really? Orlando's hosting Toronto. So, okay, good. You're not in Toronto as well on July 4th. Dallas hosting San Jose. That's an Unimas game. Colorado is hosting Red Bulls. That is also listed as an Unimas game. I don't think both are, unless one's on 2-Day NA and one's on Unimas, but they're both listed on both. We'll figure that out later. Vancouver's hosting a July 4th game.
Right
hosting
on.
Cincinnati. LA Galaxy hosting Real Salt Lake. Then Columbus and Miami are on the 5th. Kansas City and LAFC are on the 5th. Chicago and New York City are on the 5th. Nashville and Portland are on the 5th. Seattle and Minnesota are on the 5th. Why? Okay. Don't get it, but hopefully that will change going forward. I'm with Emery on this. It needs to be a day, especially when it's a Saturday. Like, light it up. Don't have no offense to our Canadian friends, but give them the Canada Day home games and make that a thing.
Yes.
And the July 4th game should be in the U.S. and make that a thing.
I was going to say, when is Thanksgiving in Canada?
Well, I don't know what day they would pick. Isn't there a Canada Day? Because July 4th is not Thanksgiving.
Yes. Okay, so Thanksgiving in Canada is mid-October.
Isn't there a Canada Day? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
July 4th
there
is not Thanksgiving.
Canada Day 2020 is July 1st.
See? So it's right
Yeah,
there.
So give them I know it's a midweek in 2020.
Don't worry. That's not the issue because it's going to be midweek sometimes and it's going to be weekend sometimes. Boxing Day is the same thing.
Yeah, let them have Canada Day.
Yeah, it's not about the midweek stuff. It's about making that a day that is a showcase day for the league. Yeah. And the fact that you have more games on the 5th than the 4th and you have 2 games on the 4th in Canada, it's not a showcase game right now. I think it can be.
No, I'm absolutely right there with you. Give July 4th. Because then you're getting it's almost back-to-backers where July 1st is Canada Day and then Independence Day is July 4th. And so you could really blow that up as soccer week in North America or whatever.
Yeah, that's what it should be. So, Emery, when that happens for MLS, you will get credit.
Yes.
All right, We're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, Contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Boxing Day, December 26th. Looks like Tottenham is going to take care of business and not be upset by the VAR decision. I'm sure we'll have some consternation about it, though, because it's what we do. Looks like they're going to get the 2-1 win as they are deep in stoppage time now, and there's your final whistle. So, bunch of games coming up at 10 o'clock, along with our friends to the north in Scotland. Aberdeen is at home at 10 o'clock as well. So we'll be kind of talking about all of that as we go. Unintentional bonus tonight, and it's going to be Liga MX After Dark.
Yes.
The Liga MX final got bumped back because of Monterrey's participation in the Club World Cup. So first leg is tonight, and first leg is on FS1 in English. So for those of you guys who listen to the show and are not bilingual, and I know there are quite a few of you who are, this is an opportunity to see a massive game in English on FS1 from Mexico. And these are two clubs that This is a powerhouse match, and it's the first leg of two. The second leg's on Sunday. That will be on 2DNA, and I believe they will have an English stream on their website and app and such. I don't think they have the SAP function active for these, but they have been doing where they can get the English language rights. They have been doing English language broadcasts more and more and more. It's very cool. 2DNA is starting to get deeper into it and put, I think, more of attention to it as well. It's more of a production now. I think at first they tried to do it a little bit more like a watch along on social media. Now it's more just like an English language broadcast. One thing to keep in mind why that's kind of weird, why you're not getting both games on FS1 or both games on 2DNA. Mexico splits up all their TV rights, so the teams do it themselves, and it creates some chaos. Like a couple years ago, I think you had 2DNA with everything, and then now Fox has started to pick stuff off. They grabbed Tijuana first, they got Monterrey, and then they got Santos Laguna. So they've had Santos and Monterrey, who are both very good this year in the postseason. Tijuana not so much, but hey, they're hoping. They're trying to pick up more and more and more and get more stuff in English because, one, it helps their Fox Deportes out because it's on Fox Deportes as well. And I think the predictions so far for today, from a ratings perspective for them, they're saying this could be like a Super Bowl type of draw on Fox Deportes tonight. But it will also be their most watched game in English by far. And that's a growing element because you're getting a new generation of folks who are, Americans, born and raised, parents are Mexican or grandparents are Mexican. They speak English in the household, but they have their family teams that they're attached to, like a Monterrey, like a Club America. So when you see that a network like 2DNA drew more than 50% of all soccer viewing in the United States in 2019, and you see games that have historically just been in Spanish now being presented in English too for the gringos like us, this is a new world. And I think a lot of times if you don't pay attention to it, you think Premier League, it's the biggest thing in the United States. It's bigger than MLS. It's the Premier League, man. You got to compare to that. Actually, you got to compare to Mexico because that's the most watched league in the United States.
And you really just have to tip your hat to Tudene over the last handful of years, and where they are more than happy to go wall to wall and do triple headers and branch out into social media and put things on Twitter for streaming and on their website and all this kind of stuff. I think that the way that they have really just grabbed Liga MX by the scruff of the neck, and they're like, okay, well, we'll do this, then we'll expand, and then we'll have all of the ancillary programming around it, not just the elongated pregame shows, but the ancillary programming around it. They're not afraid to go live an hour, 2 hours ahead of time. They're not afraid to go an hour, 2 hours after. They're not afraid to drop all of the league programming that will do the compressed games that you see. And the viewership shows what they've been able to do. And they've drawn in guys like me to sit there and try to become educated on what's going on in the Apertura and the Clausura, because you never know when those individuals who are making names for themselves in Liga MX might be considered to be transferred and come up and be a part of MLS. So I think that as a part of the fan education, as a part of their own ratings increases, and as a cornerstone for their network, what we've seen from Tudene has really brought Liga MX to the fore, and it's caused American networks to sit there and take notice about it because of what we've seen on FS1 late night, because of what we've seen on FS2 in those same time slots, because of Fox Deportes, ESPN Deportes, all of these different things that have been able to put Liga MX to the fore. And it really has become at times like tonight. I think that if you got time tonight, it is appointment television. And I think that it's a good window into what you're missing if you haven't seen it until then.
Yeah, make time tonight. This is a big game in the continent. And Atlanta United fans who are listening will know that there's a very good chance that Atlanta could see Club America here in a couple of months. It's a must watch, and they know Monterrey well too. This is a Monterrey squad that is very, very similar to the one that played at the Benz in the CONCACAF Champions League back in March. It's a little awkward on the Club America side because they've had to sit and wait for this match, and they played a friendly. They played Leones Negros last Friday. They won 5-1 in a friendly. It's a friendly. How much does that really prepare you? Go ask New York City FC how the friendly against Chicago over the international break prepared them for the playoffs. Not very well. It's just it's difficult to replicate that. Then the flip side is Monterrey. Yeah, they've been playing, but they had to travel halfway around the world to do it and then travel back. And how is that going to affect them? It's a big question. You know, tonight's going to be a packed house at the Estadio BBVA Bancomer, and probably 70, 80,000 at the Estadio Azteca on Sunday. Huge crowds and two big teams. Most people are giving Club America the advantage here, slightly. The SPI rating that ESPN uses, they're saying Club America is the 54% chance to win it. So pretty narrow. The wild thing about the Mexican season, this year anyway, is that, you know, playoffs. We talk about playoffs, and the number one seed doesn't always get there. Well, in Mexico, it is the 6 versus the 8 in the final.
Yeah.
The way this worked out. You had Monterrey, who changed managers and have been rampaging through the second half of the season, and then Club America, who is a powerhouse, and you know, Miguel Herrera knows how this stuff works. You get into the postseason and you take care of your business there, and he has. So, you know, you've seen both of these teams. Seeing Monterrey at the Club World Cup, they really impressed me, and not just how they really made Liverpool work to get past them, but how they handled Al Sadd as well. I lean to Monterrey here. I think they're the hotter team, but I do wonder how much that travel is going to affect them.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to bring up, where they're looking at Club America with that 54-46. Is it the idea that they jump on them here, and with all of the travel that's associated with it, you take advantage of possibly weak legs and having to fly halfway around the world and all these different things? I mean, for me, that would be the reason where, if I'm looking at Club America, that would be the first reason why. But I would think that because of Monterrey, and we've talked about playing in rhythm before, you're halfway around the world, but you're still playing. You're out there. You're still going up against top competition. And so this is just it's the next one. And so for me, that's why I was going to lean the other way and go Monterrey, just because they're in that rhythm of playing, regardless of where they're playing on the planet, but they're still under that idea of getting reps and still doing things against top competition.
Yeah, Turco Mohamed, the manager at Monterrey, sent 9 guys back to Mexico early from the Club World Cup. They didn't play in the consolation game that Monterrey went on to win. Under Mohamed, since he took over October 9th, Monterrey's lost 1 time in all competitions. And that was to Liverpool,
Yeah.
And that was also in stoppage, or beginning of stoppage time, end of the 90 minutes. It was a very narrow loss. They are a good team that really seemed to kind of lose their way under Diego Alonso. Mohamed has just, I think in a lot of ways, simplified it. They're a little more vertical than they used to be. They've got the size. They're good on set pieces. I mean, they're a strong team physically. They can press you. They can make life difficult for you. They can cause those turnovers. It's the vertical style. It's incorporating a striker like Janssen, but he's been in and out. He's been okay. That really pushed Rogelio Funes Mori back to the fore, and he's been great lately. I think Monterrey is the better team. Club America, from I think the way they look at this, they have to get through tonight without too much damage, because the second leg, short rest for Monterrey after the travel, after the busy time, after potentially a little bit of a letdown. I mean, going from being so close against Liverpool to now coming back and having to dial it up 2 more times. Do they have that in them for 180 minutes? That second leg at altitude in Mexico City, it's going to be all Aguilas, but are they going to have enough of a lifeline? I think Monterrey needs to feel good about where they are. I think they need to win by 2 tonight.
Yeah, and for me, that's key. I think that you look at this first leg, you make your hay, and then you hang on. And I'll put hang on in quotes. But I think that if you're Monterrey, you take care of business tonight and give yourself that cushion and that margin for error, then I think that you'll get things done and you'll end up getting the Duke overall. But yeah, make your hay tonight. That way you don't have to worry necessarily as much about the second leg and trying to climb a mountain.
It sounds good, but Piojo's team has been a weird one in the postseason. They've lost the first leg in the quarterfinal and the semifinal. And the first time around, they lost the first leg at home and then had to go to Monterrey to beat Tigres. And it's probably the game of the year in Mexico, 4-2 win on the road. Against Morelia, they had the home leg second. They lost on the road at Morelia, but they won 2-0 at home. So they've got I think the mental strength to deal with even a 2-goal loss at Monterrey doesn't put them out of it. But I think Monterrey needs that type of cushion to go into the second leg. I don't think they're going to be as strong in Mexico City as they will be tonight. It feels like tonight is the game that they really have to throw everything at it and then hold on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Make sure that you put what was it that Duke told Rocky in Rocky IV? Everything behind you, all your hate, all your love, no pain. That speech. If you give that speech, that's what you're hunting for tonight.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much where you're at. Piojo has said that if they don't win the trophy, it is a total failure. And his contract's up in the summer too. That brings us back to a couple things. There's few clubs in MLS that don't have a manager yet. And I don't think they want to wait till the summer, but Miguel Herrera would be quite the get. Just saying. There's one club that's talked about, wanting to hire somebody and having somebody who's had some input. And the only reason why they maybe couldn't have been able to hire somebody is they've been busy. And the idea that maybe they could have hired them by now, but that was delayed, was unexpected from the team. And it's unexpected that Piojo would be preparing for a December 29th second leg of the final when Monterrey got there, because they were the 8th seed. Nobody expected them to be in the final, and things have to be delayed for their Club World Cup participation. Maybe that's the one. Maybe, and if it's not, then Chicago needs to be banging on the door at the Estadio Azteca and saying, oh, you got 6 months left on your deal. What kind of check is it going to take? What kind of check are we going to have to cut here? Because either one would be great. I don't know if he's as good of a fit in New York with the City Football Group and all that. I think he'd probably have more of an impact in Chicago, honestly. I think Chicago would have a huge impact. But Miami, you talk about a big name, and he checks all the boxes. He checks all of the boxes on the list that Jorge Mas has talked about playing career, about being known. The only one I don't remember if Mas specifically said that the manager they wanted had played in Europe or had a European playing career or anything like that. I don't know how much stock they've put into that side of it, but you talk about a national team player, you talk about what he's done at the managerial level. Piojo in Miami, love it. Piojo in Chicago would be one of those moves, I think a lot like Thierry Henry to Montreal, that gets a lot of buzz, and they need buzz, but they're also getting somebody who has won trophies. So it's maybe the best hire you could get for Chicago, but it doesn't look like Chicago's going to go down that direction, because all the reports out of Chicago have been that they are going to go with Rafael Vicky, who managed the US U17s at the last World Cup, crashed out in the group stage. Didn't look great. He did take over the team pretty late in the process. Really difficult spot for him. I don't think it really tells you too much about his managerial level. He's had success as a manager, just didn't with this last job. It's not a pick that would be maybe a sexy pick. It's not going to grab your attention. But he's also worked with the sporting director, George Heitz. So it makes sense in that regard. But, man, if you take that out of the mix and you look at Piojo going to Chicago, that would feel like the transformational move that they need. So now they're going to have to do it as a player if they go get Vicky. But for Miami, just going by the things that have been said, and I know we've zeroed in on Gallardo and talked about Patrick Vieira, and then Carlo Ancelotti's name popped up, even though he couldn't have popped up during the expansion draft time frame. Piojo maybe could have, and we haven't talked about him as a possibility for Miami. Would love to see it.
In either of those places, yes, I would love to see it. But Chicago, for me, needs buzz. And you mentioned the relationship with Vicky and Heights, which sounds like a sitcom, and you hope that for Chicago's sake that it doesn't turn into a sitcom. But, yeah, I mean, I'm to the point with one of those clubs. If Piojo becomes available, it's like, what's it going to take? And would love to see the kind of, I mean, he's going to win the press conference, but the kind of impact that having that kind of a manager in this league would have as well. I mean, that's one of those that you sit there and it's, while in a way it's fantasy booking, but you're hoping that there's going to be a day where that does end up happening. And if it happens,
at the end of the summer, I mean, that's the thing is you can't wait. And this is where it gets tricky. Like, you're not going to wait until the summer.
No.
But his contract's coming up. If you want him, you need to go get him.
Yep.
And Like, this is the only kind of move that makes sense for Miami based off what we know, because otherwise they could have already hired somebody and announced them. When they pushed it back to January 1st, it's like, what? Why would it?
Yeah.
What could be causing that? The Mexican final being pushed back makes sense for this. So
Yeah.
you want him in the league because he's a big figure, because he's going to be entertaining, because he's a good manager. You want him in Major League Soccer, and he's going to command a big paycheck. He's worth it, I think, with his track record. So it's an interesting time. I wonder if he's the guy in Miami, or I wonder if his name has come up in MLS circles. It should have. I would assume it has. But with this about his contract being up in the summer after the Clausura, how hard would it be to get him out of that 6 months early? Probably not.
Don't think it would be
difficult. I mean, you got to pay off Club America. You got to pay out the contract or whatever. But
right,
I would imagine that it is feasible. So, and it might be more feasible if they don't win the final, and then Club America says, "All right, fine, we'll just go ahead and rebuild."
Yeah, okay, we'll go for a clean break, and you can go, and we'll do our thing, and you can go do yours. Yeah.
Or there could already be an agreement, because the way Miami's talking is there's already an agreement with somebody, and just who is it? Could that be Herrera? Who knows? Be interesting to see. We'll keep mulling this over, and we'll keep you posted. But tonight, FS1 Liga MX final in Monterrey, Rayados hosting Club America. 9:30 is the broadcast on FS1, so we will be talking about it tomorrow for sure. It is a big game. It's the biggest two games left in this hemisphere anyway in 2019, so take advantage of the opportunity to watch it. It'll be a fun one tonight. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Boxing Day, December 26th. Bunch of games getting ready to start at 10 o'clock in the Premier League. Also in Scotland. And John Gallagher is on the bench for Aberdeen to start in their last home fixture of 2019. For those of you who have been kind of following Aberdeen, keeping up with it after the announcement with Atlanta United, Red TV has the match today. We're going to have Jarrett Smith join us at 10 o'clock, and we'll talk a little bit about Scotland and I think what we might see out of the Aberdeen move. We did hear about the link to a player at Hearts earlier in the week, rumored to be going to Atlanta United. I'm not 100% sure of that one, but just kind of where the levels are, what types of things we could see with these relationships. You have Rangers now forming a strategic partnership with Orange County in the USL Championship, which was a surprising one. It's not the same deal that Atlanta has with Aberdeen. Atlanta and AMBSE, Arthur Blank's sports and entertainment arm, actually bought part of Aberdeen. You don't have that in these other partnerships or relationships like FC Dallas and Bayern Munich or Rangers and Orange County. But you're going to get some benefits from this on the Atlanta side. I don't think it's purely just a financial play. I think there will be soccer benefits. It's an interesting one. So we'll dig a little deeper now that we're a few weeks after it. We've seen little things here and there between Atlanta and Aberdeen. We'll talk to Jared about that here at 10 o'clock, among other things. Wanted to get into a couple rumors that have popped up since we left you on Tuesday. Sebastian Mendez, the central midfielder from Orlando, really good first season for him in Central Florida. He has been mentioned as a possible target for LDU Quito in Ecuador. Mendez reportedly saw an offer come in from Quito to Orlando for $7 million, and it was turned down. This is coming from LDU Director and Executive Committee President Esteban Paz. He said this on Radio 102.1 in Ecuador on Tuesday, that talks between LDU and Orlando didn't gain much traction. Orlando rejected the $7 million offer. Carlos Grueso, John's favorite fantasy player, has also been as a possible target for LDU Quito. You still can't put him in your MLS fantasy team, though.
Not even if he's playing with LDU Quito, I can't have him at MLS fantasy.
No, you're not going to be able to pull that one off. Mendez, $7 million. I saw some folks react to this like, oh, why would you turn that down? Because I think he's worth more. He was the most impressive player for Orlando last season. And he's a good young player that I think that value will continue to go up. The interesting thing to me, though, is now you're starting to get some South American teams looking to MLS just like it's part of the club of leagues, just like it's part of the mix now. It's not where old players go and that's it. It's not where just very young players go and that's it. It's a club like LDU who could be looking at this like, you know what? He's a good player. We've got the money to spend. Let's put the offer out there. We go get him. It's just another league. That's a bit of a perception change, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Club of Nation, the whole idea of consistently being engaged in these kinds of discussions, and I think that once again it gets to the evolution of the league in and of itself, and how it's not just the kid that sits alone at lunch or the new kid at school that everybody sits there and they try to knock all of your test papers out of your hand and stream them across the hallway. You're actually you're actually a part of the discussion now, and I think that's, for me, it's fun to see where MLS is being engaged when it comes to interest outbound for players that want to come in, and for leagues. And I mean, LDU Quito and Orlando City. A couple of years ago, I don't think that would have been two dance partners that we would have put on this show. And to have this kind of stuff here now, I think that it's part of, obviously it's the part of the evolution of where MLS is at school, and it's more than just being the new kid. Now you're actually seeing the kid being looked at as one of the cool kids, I guess.
It's a difference though. It's not just LDU Quito and Orlando being linked. It's the way they're being linked. It's LDU Quito wanting to buy from Orlando,
right,
not the other way around. That's right. The difference. Because, I mean, you had Mendez go from Independiente del Valle to Orlando. Those types of moves have happened. They've been happening more recently and in greater numbers more recently, but it's the other way. It's the leagues over in South America, obviously overseas period, and in other parts of the world too, but specifically in South America, saying, you know what, we can buy from MLS and it's worth it to us. We don't have to just sell young talent there or watch, our veterans, our legends go there. It's just a marketplace. The league's good. He had a good year. He could play very well for us. That's a difference in the mentality. It's a big deal. But Orlando turning this down. Now, again, this is where you get to Transfermarkt, I think, still catching up to MLS values. I mean, they have Mendez valued at just under $1 million on Transfermarkt, and Orlando's turning down a $7 million offer. 22 years old, emerging as an Ecuador international. Is he worth on the open market $7 million? Potentially. He's worth a whole lot more than $912,000 that Transfermarkt has him at. But to Orlando right now, and especially with Oscar Pareja coming in, I think he's valued even more to them because he is a linchpin for that Orlando City midfield. That look, they've got to have success this year. I mean, it's not a make or break year for Pareja because it's his first, and he has a track record of quality. So it's not like people are going to start questioning him immediately, and not in any real meaningful way. Not the people who would be deciding to end a contractual situation. But you need Mendez, you need Uri Rosell, you need Mauricio Pereira. You need that group of talent to perform. And if you lose Mendez, even for that kind of money right now, it's worth more to you to have him and turn down the money than to take that money out to the market at this point. And I think that's where Orlando is. I think it's a smart play for them not to sell him yet.
Right. But yeah, to your point that I was poorly making, the fact that there's interest from outside the United States and it's coming from all directions is, to me, it's the next stage in the evolution of the league and the franchises and the talent pool and the growth of the league and all these kinds of things. But to have interest inbound, for me, I think that it adds that extra bit to what we've been seeing over the last handful of years.
Changes the paradigm a little bit, and I think we'll see more South American clubs look at players, whether they're South American or not, and that's maybe the next step is young American players who are at a club and have shown something but could show more, going to Ecuador, going to Colombia, going to Argentina, going to Brazil. There's no reason why it shouldn't be happening. I think perception has been a big reason why it hasn't, and hopefully that's all going to start to change. A couple other players have been linked with MLS moves, and this is one that's been going on for a little while. Olivier Giroud. French national team manager Didier Deschamps, according to L'Equipe, reportedly advised Giroud not to join MLS. He's played 5 times in the Premier League this season, 7 matches total for Chelsea. He scored a goal in the Super Cup. He's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And if the right opportunity came in MLS, he should take it. And I don't know what kind of opportunities he's going to get in January in Europe. Could he get a big club to come in for him and a good fit where he's going to play? Yeah, he could, absolutely. He might not. I think ruling it out right now and Deschamps telling him to rule that out right now is silly. It feels like I can't remember which Italian manager it was who wouldn't call up Giovinco. Stuff like that. It's going back to that negative perception. It's still out there in some places. It's got to change. We're seeing it change in Ecuador with clubs. It's got to change with a manager like Deschamps. Giroud, his best spot could be MLS. It might not be, but it could be. And the part of this for me that is a little head scratching is it hasn't been a regular call up, but we've seen Gignac called up from Tigres in Liga MX to the French national team under Deschamps. I'm nearly positive. So we're going to say, well, no to MLS, but yes to Liga MX. again, that's, I think, perception and not paying close enough attention.
Yeah, if you're Giroux, bottom line is you need reps. I mean, I would not be happy with just a handful of appearances and most of them being in League Cup things as opposed to wanting to play. I know that Giroux thinks that he still can contribute on the Premier League level, and seeing the comments from Deschamps to me basically, and I'm just going to phrase it this way, it might be a little rash, but I think that Deschamps is just still looking down his nose at MLS in general when it comes to quality of play. You know, I don't think one of my guys should go there. But, yeah, to your point, getting Gignac from Liga MX, you know, are you happy sitting on the bench? Are you happy being in League Cup stuff? Are you happy getting the occasional rep and thinking that you're, you know, that you're microwave talents?
We're past that. He's going to leave. I mean, he said he's probably going to leave. Inter Milan has popped up as a possibility.
Okay.
Moving back to France, Montpellier is a possibility. At one point, looks like that's not going to happen. Lyon has been mentioned. Inter seems like the one that has the most traction, but he's been linked reportedly to the LA Galaxy and Toronto FC. Rangers have supposedly tried to get his attention as well. His agent isn't speaking about anything. He said, I never comment on discussions. He's going to leave. He's not going to stay at Chelsea. We're past that point, but if you're looking at those options, if he goes to Inter, for example, is he going to play?
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to displace Lukaku? Is he going to displace Lautaro Martinez?
Nope.
And they play with two up top. So,
yeah. You're going to be happy doing the same thing there that you've been doing at Chelsea, coming in and with 15 minutes to go and trying to be instant offense?
Is he going to go to Lyon and play behind Dembele?
See,
I mean,
that to me is the question in all of this. It's like you wherever it appears, and all these dance partners that you're mentioning, it would be the same role that you have at Chelsea. Coming off the bench, doing 15 to 20 minutes.
Rangers wouldn't. I mean, if he wanted to go that route, but I'm sorry if you're looking at going to Rangers or LA Galaxy. I'm not buying the Toronto rumor as much, but the Galaxy, we know they need a number 9. LA Galaxy is a better move for him than Rangers, flat out.
Yeah,
it just is, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. Deschamps, I mean, he's 33 years old. I don't think we're talking about him for the national team much at this point anyway. So Giroud going to the Galaxy. Well, the Galaxy need that number 9. He'd fit. He would absolutely be the fit for them. Keep an eye on it. Sounds like he's going to stay in Europe, but wonder what kind of offer, what kind of money they could put in front of him to get him to come. Cavani reportedly wanted $11 million. Galaxy weren't willing to pay it. They paid Zlatan nearly $8 million. Would you get into that ballpark for Giroud? Probably.
Yeah.
So, see what happens. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Jarrett Smith on the line. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, hour number 2. We have pulled Jarrett Smith away from torturing cats to join us. Maybe. He might be torturing cats.
Apparently not.
I mean, do you want me to?
No. It just seems to happen a lot when you join the show. Cats get tortured.
They don't want to disappoint people. So I don't know what's going to disappoint them or make them happy.
Let's go with not torturing cats, and let's go with a check-in on Scotland. Your Celtic people are upset. You say they're riled up because there's no rotation the festive fixtures.
No, there's no rotation because Atlanta fans can agree to this. I'm sure that hey, we're not rotating the squad before a big game of the weekend. Man, no one's ever been upset about that before.
Yeah, never heard that one before.
Nope.
On the other hand, Aberdeen's playing, and I know Atlanta fans have taken a vested interest in Aberdeen. And I hope they've also taken a vested interest in Aberdeen's new chairman and the fire he is spitting.
Oh, yeah.
Concerning Sam Cosgrove's questionable red card from last week. And then the league doubling down and giving him a 2-game suspension. It made no sense.
Yeah, the actual red was bad, and then giving him the 2 games. And I do love that Cormac tweeted about this yesterday and showed some pictures of a very questionable non-call that didn't go Aberdeen's way against your Celtic boys.
Yeah, and so here's the thing about that.
Here we go.
It's really fun to watch it all happen all the time because everyone lives in the moment with these sorts of things. When something like that goes their way, you'll get people belly aching about Celtic and Rangers getting all the calls. Then the inverse will happen, and the Celtic and Rangers fans, numerous they may be, will do the exact same thing. So one camp is going to scream about injustice no matter what, and it's going to be loud, and it's generally going to be petty and funny to watch. Scottish football just gets so many things wrong. It's amazing.
Let me ask you one more before John chimes in. The Olivier Giroud rumors, we were talking about him in the last segment, and at some point he's been linked to Rangers. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they've probably answered the calls.
I don't know they have the money for that right
now. That's a whole nother story.
True.
Just the basic point of this is you've got Didier Deschamps saying, don't go to the LA Galaxy, don't go to Toronto, which doesn't make sense, but anyway, don't go to MLS. But he didn't say anything about Rangers specifically because I don't know how much of a rumor it is, but just comparing the levels. I mean, what would be a better fit for a player like Olivier Giroud? Going to play for Rangers or going to play for the LA Galaxy?
Born in Kansas City?
Well, no, they just signed Alan Pulido. They're not going to sign Olivier Giroud.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. But that kind of fit, like, hey, we need a big number 9 up top. Because I think we've been over this before, like, and I know as people have gotten more into Aberdeen, I'm hoping they've watched more of the Scottish League and understood that, hey, Celtic and Rangers are really good. They pour a lot of money into their squads. They're very good teams. But, man, you get past, say, like the Aberdeens and the Motherwells, and the drop-off is, like, it's terminal velocity real damn quick in Scotland. to argue. So if you want to say, hey, we want him to go play at Rangers, that's fine. I would love to see like Rangers and Celtic play MLS clubs just for a sake of barometer. But the rest of Scottish League, and you're going to get better competition coming to America and playing with the Galaxy, playing with Toronto, which I still love that everybody is trying to fit number 9s into Toronto as if they still don't have Josie Altidore, our large adult son.
For the record, for those not watching this morning, apparently Sheffield United and Watford a kickoff has been delayed there as a separate note. And also, if you're not following...
Is it for a good reason?
Don't know. I have to dig that up. But Dave Cormack, if you're not following him on Twitter, do so at Cormac Davie, Cormack, capital Davie. That's your Aberdeen chairman. And you mentioned him spitting fire. The last tweet that he had from 12 hours ago: law equals fairness and consistency. Sam will take his ban, but the compliance officer has a duty to review Ayer feigning injury with his triple salvo and miraculous recovery after Sam gets the red. Griffiths lunges into Ferguson's knee with both feet in the air. Fairness for all, please. That's the kind of fire, Jared, that we're getting from the chairman these days.
And I love it so much. Good on it for having some fire aim. Not the first time Ayers made a meal of something either, which is always fun to watch guys like him or Julien do it, because they're both like 6'4". Ayers a monster of a human being. So I'm always tickled when like the giants, the physical marvels are the ones that are rolling on the ground, because it's much more entertaining for me just because there's more body parts rolling around like crazy.
Like when Harry Kane gets a allegedly hands to the face, and it turned out to be a whiff, and he grabs his head and falls down this morning.
Mm-hmm. And then rolls down the hill towards like basically the pharmacy, like rolls for 8 miles. The Neymar roll.
Let's get into your thoughts, Jarrett, on kind of where things stand for Atlanta United in silly season right now. We're few weeks away from training camp opening up, not far away at all from actual preseason matches happening, and haven't seen a whole lot of movement just yet. The CBA negotiations, definitely have a factor in all of that, but what's your temperature right now on where Atlanta United stands going into preseason?
I mean, we can't be done with everything yet. Just can't be. So many rumors going around with silly season about to hit full bloom in January, and the problem is you have CONCACAF Champions League starting soon, but you've got the rumors about LGP, you've got the rumors about PT, you've got incoming rumors as well. And I mentioned this last week that as silly and chaotic as it may be for people, from Sam Stechkol's article in The Athletic about LGP may be gone, Tito might be shipped out. We don't know really about PT and where that stands, and if they make any other moves. Well, that's only half the equation, because you ship those guys out. Those are big moves out. You got to make moves to come in. So that is the peanut butter to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the incoming is going to be the jelly, and it's going to be absurd, because when you have those openings, and Atlanta has established itself the way it has as a premier club that has money, everybody and their mother is going to be tied in to those rumors. It's going to be just plain stupid. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't think we're done by any stretch. And I think you've got a lot of the core guys in there right now who can make things work. So we'll see. I'm really curious to see what we see in training when the time comes, and what we see when they have to go to Honduras to play, what the team looks like. Last year was a really tough situation where you're bringing in a new coach, a new system. It was a culture change in a sense. Because even as Barkey talked about, De Boer doesn't have that loose, free and easy style that Tata had. And I think now that you've kind of established it a bit, it's gonna be a bit easier even with the changes. But I mean, that's a lot of dynamic changes if those moves come to pass. Because I mean, at that point, you're losing PT, who is an insane playmaker, who put up, you start really looking into his numbers, and was just scary good when he found his rhythm and he wasn't hurt and things weren't going sideways. And, you're also potentially losing a guy like LGP who is is a leader. Let's call it what it is. I mean, whether or not he was a captain last year, I mean, that guy's still a leader. He has played a very large influence on this club, on and off the field, and in this league. Remember, going into the All-Star break last year, he was a guy who was speaking up about the CBA negotiations. And for a guy who is from Argentina and aspires for national team duty for them, who has not had a full career in MLS, to be going to bat like that, he's outspoken. And he's more than happy to get involved in those things. So I want to see how this all unfolds with these rumors. We're not done with this by any means. It's going to get done, but they don't call it silly season because it's perfectly calm.
Well, and at the same time, you're going to have a healthy Miles Robinson, and I know that folks are still cursing Greg Berhalter. And you've got Emerson Hyndman in the fold for 3 years, obviously with the Darlington Nagbe egress. I know that a lot of folks were wondering about, who's going to replace Nagbe. Well, Emerson Hyndman would like to raise his hand and sit there and for the next 3 years be that solution. When you saw Hyndman get inked for 3 years and the anticipation there with what's going on, what's been running through your mind, knowing who's coming back, not necessarily who's possibly being linked to leaving.
See, I don't know what they're going to do in terms of that midfield because they're going to have a lot of bodies. I mean, you've got the rumors now coming out of Cerro Porteño, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you already have
Biasanti,
here. Yeah, you already have Remedi here, who I feel like is taken kind of a back seat in this conversation. You have Hyndman. You have Lorenowitz for another year. I'm assuming this is going to be his last year. He might keep going. We don't know with Jeff. I'm not gonna question our angry soccer dad about what he's going to do. You've got plenty of bodies there. As I know, his negotiations are kind of a sore point for people, but Julian Gressel has played in that midfield before. I prefer him out wide, but he has played in that midfield before. You're going to have bodies. And it just, you also have Mo Adams, by the way.
I was about to say, yeah, you forgot one.
Who can play as a 6. And I think there's plenty of clubs who could look at Mo Adams and say, we don't need you to be a ball-playing 6. We need you to be a roadblock 6. Which I think he can do, but I also think he can be more than that.
I do too. I think we saw it with the twos. I think
he's shown he can be more than that.
Yeah, I think we saw it with the twos late in the season, and I think that was by design because the idea was Mo Adams can defend. He can defend 1v1, but what can he do in possession? It seemed to be one of the reasons why Chicago didn't give him enough time. With the twos, he played in the way that in Atlanta United 6 would be asked to play. So I don't think you can rule him out either. You look at this team right now, you've got your 3 goalkeepers with Brad Guzan, with Alec Can, with Brendan Moore. You've got outside backs in George Bello, Franco Escobar, Brooks Lennon. We know Gressel can play as a wing back, but not necessarily as a right back in a line of 4.
Please no. Please don't do that to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's happened one time, so I guess you can't completely.
I know, and I wasn't.
One start.
I know, but it's not my favorite. It's down there on the list of things I want to do. I'll do it if I get forced into it, but I'd rather
be
not.
Third on the list now, and playing as a right back in a line of 4. You've only got 3 center backs dedicated, and some of this is going to depend on how you look at Jeff Lorenowitz in 2020. LGP, Robinson, and Campbell in his first professional season under contract. He played a lot last year with Atlanta United too, on an amateur deal. Lorenowitz can factor in there. Lorenowitz can also factor into the central midfield, along with Hyndman, with Remedi, with Adams, with Gressel potentially. Out on the wings, you've got, and some of these guys can factor in as a number 10 in that sense as well. You've got Barco, you've got Pereira, you've got Pitti, you've got Gressel, you've got Carlton, you've got maybe Gallagher, although he's probably going to stay at Aberdeen. You've got Luis Fernando, you've got Lagos Kunga all under contract. And then up top, you've got Joseph Martinez and Tito Villalba, who can factor in out wide as well. It's a pretty robust roster at this point, although there are some spots that you could see upgrade/reserve roles needed.
Yeah, and I would think if you're going to see guys going out, then you're going to see holes that need to be filled.
And that's a different question. Yeah. If there are outgoing moves, then of course you're going to see incoming moves to replace them. I think you could see incoming moves without outgoing moves, but if there are outgoing moves, you'll definitely see incoming moves as a counter.
And potentially I want my dream of Jeff Larentowicz just taking Lawrence Weick under his wing and just telling him, here's how you need to destroy everyone in existence from your position on the field as a six. Because I just need him to get that mentality of what he already has of the never met a 2-foot tackle he didn't like, for better or worse. And I don't want to see Larentowicz have to play center back all year. I don't think he's going to be that guy all year. So we'll see. To your point about Mo Adams, the thing that I think that impressed me was with him playing that 6 with the 2s is a lot of that team. You look at the team last year, the average age was like 20 or 21. He was playing with kids, and he was having to take a role of, we need you to play with the ball at your feet, because you're going to be playing with the ball at your feet with the likes of a Campbell who's 17, a Degas who's 19, Lawrence Weick who's 20, 21 years old. He was playing with a lot of young players. It's not like he could hide. So I was impressed with the way he was able to play last year with the 2s in a situation where there weren't veterans around him aside from a Jack Metcalf, who could help him kind of hide, so to speak, and he didn't hide. So I do want to see what he looks like this year, because I want to see if that ends up being the coup that we think it can be of a move getting from Chicago.
I'm glad you mentioned Lawrence Weick too, and watching Aberdeen right now take the lead on Livingston. They're up 1-0. Weick under contract with Atlanta United too. He's not on an MLS deal. I'm with you in mentioning, I do think he's a potential MLS player. I think he's been a huge surprise. He has the ability from a physical standpoint and from a technical standpoint to up his game. I think he can play at the MLS level. He seems like the perfect kind of player, like Gallagher has been in that in-between, where we know what they can do at USL Championship. We know they're very good there. Can they make that jump up to Aberdeen and perform? And with Weick, you're not going to have to worry about work permits in that situation. That might be an obvious move that happens in the window, is Weick goes to Aberdeen for 6 months and gets some time at a higher level, and we see where he's at.
I wouldn't mind that. I think he could play it physically. I think that'd be the least of the problems. Yeah. To be fair, most of the fouls that Lawrence Weick picked up yellow cards for in MLS that's a play on in Scotland.
Oh, no, in USL, yeah. MLS, you don't know what it would be. USL, like, sometimes it's going to be a foul, sometimes it's going to be a play on. Scotland, it's always play on.
That man's bone sticking out. He can put it in during the next throw in. It's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. Put it back in place.
Tape it up.
It's all good. AA5 Stripes with the question, Jason, let me start with you. If you remember timetables, he says, what was the time point when PT arrived to Atlanta United prior to the CCL starting last year? And when should we expect the final roster for the season? #Thirsty Thoughts.
I think one is I would probably get away from the term final roster. It doesn't really apply here anymore. The MLS window here at the beginning of the season is very long, so you could see a roster that has some changes happen even in March, even in April, potentially. Remember Justin Merrim coming in when he did last season. Pitti arrived in late January. It was right before the window officially closed, because remember there was all the worry and concern about, well, what happens if Miguel Almiron doesn't get sold? And he got sold on January 31st. Pitti was announced, I want to say, 5-6 days before that. And that's when he arrived in Atlanta. So, final roster, it's just going to always be an evolution. I think we'll see the CONCACAF portion of it, the idea of what Atlanta United will take into CONCACAF competition. I don't know if you'll see it on January 11th, I think that'd be a great plan, but I don't know if that's going to be possible. It's probably going to be more in that January 2025 range where you're getting close to a month of training and incorporating any players that you add at that point.
And you got plenty of time when you do that in that sense of the league. You just got to get through this first round of CONCACAF Champions League, first of all. And
you got to be as strong as possible, for sure.
Yeah, and Honduras can be tricky. You learned last year that Costa Rica can be tricky. The first round can get a little sideways. Was it Toronto last year that just got smacked around by a team?
By Los Vikingos from Panama.
Yes, by the Vikings, by the Panamanian Vikings. So you don't take anything for granted in this situation. So we'll see how they look in that first round. But yeah, just be as strong as possible going in, take care of business there, and then you're just bring people in trying to integrate, because if you do we have a rock fight scheduled with Club America.
Yeah.
Boy.
It's a weird one because this window, technically, and this is just for registration purposes, it really doesn't matter. Technically, the window opens on February 12th for MLS. Announcements get made way before that, and you're not playing games, so it doesn't matter. They just can't be officially registered with the United States Soccer Federation and Major League Soccer until February 12th. So, paperwork. But it closes on May 5th. And that's the part you got to keep in mind, because I think you'll see a roster that is mostly done going into CONCACAF, and it'll probably be by the end of January. But if opportunities present themselves, as they did last year with Justin Merrim, as they could any other time with a player in the league or a player potentially outside the league, you have to be listening, because something could happen that you need to take advantage of. So I wouldn't say it's the final roster by the time the season starts. Merrim's a prime example of that.
Yeah, Merrim was the move, I think, last year that I still love mostly. And part of it is because as the treasurer of the Justin Merrim fan club, that was enough that, hey, we brought in Justin Merrim. I'm happy. Aside from that, you brought in a position where you needed a body because you were running out Dion Pereira. Dion Pereira was solid early on in his MLS run. He was going out there. He was giving you what you needed, winning one-on-one battles, late in games, giving you opportunities. I thought Pereira had some really good showings early on. But I don't know if it was people getting a book on him or if he was running out of gas a bit and he was getting beat up a little bit by the league. He hit a wall, and you needed a guy like Merrim to really just grind you through those middle parts of the calendar. In the same way that 2 years ago, I know Chris McCann isn't the most favorited player in Atlanta United history, but you needed him 2 years ago to grind you through the middle of that calendar when everybody was hurt. And so having that guy who can help just get you through it was huge. And you might see that again this year. Now, whether that comes in at the end of January, whether it comes in the middle, you're going to need somebody, maybe not just for that position, but somebody somewhere. You're going to help you get through the grind, especially in a season in MLS, the way it's set up now, where there's so much compacted games. You're going to need rotation. You're going to need bodies who can go out there and give you, even if it's 45 minutes of something.
Yeah, I think the way the MLS transfer windows are constructed, you're almost thinking about it more like baseball, where you have a roster that goes into the season, but players come up, players go down to the minors, injuries pop up, and you have to call somebody up to replace it. That could open up a spot. It's more of an evolution with a couple different mile markers along the way. You have that May 5th one, then the window opens back up for a month. This year it's going to be July 7th to August 5th, and then it shuts. And then after that, you can only sign guys who are out of contract or in the United States. So you've got a lot of time. You've got a lot of different time to evolve this roster as it goes. And you could see that again. You never know what the injury situation will be. You never know if you get into the year and you need a little something extra. And Merrim was that. You had McCann under contract in 18, but he was that in 18. You never know. You never know what you end up needing, and you have the opportunity to continually add to your roster as you go. Jarrett, before
I'd argue that Anton Walker was that guy in 17.
Yeah,
too.
and he was under contract, but you just didn't count on him in that point.
Yeah.
Before,
I think the first time we saw him was that 4th of July game.
It was.
The drug-fueled mess that was that San Jose game.
First time we saw him start was that one, because I remember
because he scored a goal and just
him starting period in that game, and it's like, what? Yeah. What's going on? It happens sometimes. You never know. That's how a season will go. We're going to take a quick break. Jarrett, do you have cats to torture, or are you going to hang out with us?
I can hang out.
Okay, we're going to talk about the piece over at MLSsoccer.com. Charlie Boehm wrote about the 7 tectonic shifts that transformed MLS in the 2010s. We will give you our thoughts on tectonic shifts right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Boxing Day special edition. Special because I think we're all watching different games and talking, but also keeping up with the screen that's in front of us. You have no goals in the Premier League at all, anywhere. It's just Carlo Ancelotti not happy at Everton. We had some kind of a late start in one of the matches, and we have no idea exactly why. Sounded like some kind of a medical emergency, possibly, but ended up not being one.
Yeah, 10 minutes late starting Sheffield United and Watford, and they were citing safety concerns as to why it was pushed back for 10 minutes. The police? Oh, okay, that was a joke. But yeah, operational issues which were listed as safety concerns. Okay. So that's why Sheffield United and Watford started 10 minutes late.
All right. We do have a goal at Aberdeen. The Dons are leading 1-0. What about you, Jarrett? How's your Celtic squad doing?
They're up 1-0.
That's shocking.
So I'm happy.
It's crazy.
I know, right? It's just knocked me down with a feather.
Not
like they haven't won 8 titles in a row and 10 trophies in a row that they've entered in domestic competition.
Yeah, I mean, is it even fun?
So it's basically like playing FIFA. No, it's like playing FIFA on amateur mode.
Yeah, that's not good. I wonder what's going to happen with this. I wonder if you're going to see tectonic shifts in Scotland at some point.
Well, they tried that in the 90s, and 80% of the league went bankrupt. So yeah,
you're going to have some different tectonic shifts. We did see some tectonic shifts in Major League Soccer in the last decade, though, guys. Charlie Boehm wrote about it over at MLSsoccer.com, and I want to see what you think about the 7 that he picked. He started with Cascadia, climbing aboard the league. And you had Seattle come in 2009. We know that. But Vancouver and Portland came in 11. And you had at this point Toronto joined. Toronto wasn't very good, but they had the fan culture that maybe opened some eyes to what MLS could be heading towards. You'd had Real Salt Lake come in and build a little bit different scene in Utah, and they'd won the title in 2009. But do you feel like Portland, Vancouver, along with Seattle, maturing and growing, Jarrett, do you feel like Cascadia is one of the major shifts in MLS's growth in the last decade?
Absolutely. I think it can't be dismissed at just how big all of it was in terms of just the amount of pageantry. I know a lot of leagues like to toot their horn about their fans and the chaos that they bring to games. And in America, I feel like a lot of times we point that, and we can look at our college football to make that comparison, whereas other countries can look at soccer. And I think, and it's not to dismiss what older clubs have done, Sons of Ben, the folks in DC, the Screaming Eagles. It's not to dismiss them. Cascadia just kind of took it to another level and took this kind of animosity to another level as well. So, again, it's not to dismiss what others have done, because there's plenty of animosity in this league already. There's plenty of people who just don't like each other. But I think it was just the close proximity and the history beyond just MLS that really helped push Cascadia, and also putting together good products. You have Portland won a title. Seattle's got 2 now. Seattle won US Open Cup coming out of the gate. Vancouver is
there.
The end. They're there.
They're there. They made a big move going into the next decade. I'll give them that.
Remember when Craig Robinson was there, and we're like, man, they need to, this can get better. Yeah, it can also get worse.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Whitecaps. The Whitecaps with Cavallini coming into the mix. The second one on Charlie Boehm's list was the Galaxy capping Beckham's era with dynasty status. Now, 2009, closing out the previous decade, they reached the final, lost in penalties to Real Salt Lake. 2010, they had a good year. They didn't get to the final. 2011, they got to the final. They won it. It was already scheduled, neutral site, at their home. They won it there at the Home Depot Center. 2012, they got back there again. This is when the rules changed, and then they got to host it because they were the highest seed left. They won it again. Beckham signed back on for one more year because his contract was up at 2011. Came back in 2012, won it again. They went on in 2014 to win it again. I don't know if I'd put this all on just the Beckham era, but the first half of the decade, the Galaxy, Bruce Arena, David Beckham, Landon Donovan, Robbie Keane, Omar Gonzalez, they owned the first half of the decade and I think raised the bar for quality on the field in this league, and that was needed.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. They're just so damn good.
Robbie freaking Keane.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know.
Robbie Keane was
he was
such
not bad.
a great addition when they got him.
Yeah, Robbie Keane was a problem, y'all.
But yeah, I mean, I would take longer than just that 3 and 4 years. I would take the first half of the decade, and if you want to throw 2009 in there, I would include that as well for what Los Angeles was able to do. And I would take, back to point one with what Charlie Boehm wrote, I would take, even on smaller scales, I think that just what we're seeing with rivalries in general, I mean, for those of a certain vintage like myself who remembered what Cascadia was like in the North American Soccer League, to see it come back in MLS form has been a treat. To see just how completely and totally stacked stadia are when these three teams go at each other. Then you add in the likes of El Tráfico when LAFC came online and we're seeing what that can be with the Galaxy and LAFC. I think that the regional rivalries and the intercity rivalries, I think that it's a part of the fabric of MLS, and more of that tectonic shifting that Charlie's talking about. I think it's the rivalries in general that seem to have been amped and amplified over time.
Well, the only intra-city one you had before the decade started was Los Angeles with Chivas and Galaxy. And you had the Cali Classico, which was a rivalry. You had DC and Red Bull / Metro Stars, which is definitely a rivalry. You had those, but in this decade, you got the Cascadia rivalries. You got El Tráfico, which feels bigger than Chivas and Galaxy ever got to. You've got the Hudson River Derby in New York. Mm-hmm. You've got Atlanta Orlando. You've got what Atlanta's developed with others. You've got Toronto Montreal, which happened in this decade as well when the Impact joined. So yeah, I mean, just these types of matches, being able to get to a point to have a rivalry week and go out and sell it and have it sponsored shows you kind of where you're at with it. The next one on Charlie's list is riding World Cup waves. So the two biggest spikes year over year MLS-wide attendance is 2011 and 2015, coming after World Cups. I don't think that's an accident. Charlie didn't think it was either. I agree. I don't think it was. I think it's not a direct MLS thing, but the Landon Donovan goal in 2010 is maybe the singular moment that has had the biggest impact on American soccer, and it's affected MLS. He's an MLS player, but it's affected MLS because it's just made soccer a bigger deal in this country. That moment did that.
No, I agree. Yeah, no, I'm completely with that idea about the elevation of it because of what Landon did against Algeria, no question.
There's just a few moments like that just feel like they're a part of the fabric of everything we know now. Like it's that Lombach's header in the 121st minute against Brazil. Just those kind of moments where you remember where you were, and you can pull them up on YouTube and you can still get chills with them. Bitterly, I would like to think that the Gold Cup would have been that when USA goes up 2-0 against Mexico in the final, and Giovanni Dos Santos has the game of his life to ruin that. Like I feel like that game, if US had pulled it out, could have been that because it felt like it was going that way for 30 minutes.
Maybe. I don't think it would have had that much of an impact. I think it would have had that kind of impact in the Spanish-speaking portion of the MLS fan base, though, because it would have earned a lot of respect to beat a really good Mexico team at that time and beat them in the way that it looked like it was going early on until Gio went off and had game of his life. The next one on the list is a good one because I'd kind of forgotten about how much of a move this was. You had big players come back to MLS, big American players come back to MLS over the time frame of the league, but 2014 when Clint Dempsey signed with Seattle, and he had been at Tottenham for a year, and when Dempsey Watch started off, it was big. It was a big deal on social media, and Twitter maybe wasn't what it is now, but this was a big deal because nobody expected it. It was a big financial deal, and ultimately it did have a huge impact. Dempsey elevated the Sounders, and he ended up not being able to contribute in the 2016 run at the end due to health issues. But Clint Dempsey coming back to MLS, I think it did change a little bit of the perspective of what MLS was, and that it's okay for top national team players to play in this league. I thought it was a big move.
Yeah, it made it a destination, Jarrett, where you're sitting there and it's like, okay, you're seeing guys like Clint Dempsey want to come home. And I think that when MLS becomes the destination for players who are still in their prime or want to come home and can still contribute readily, I think that this was that first sign across the bow of soccer in general. It's like, yeah, you can come home. You can be a part of MLS. You can be a part of building something. So, no, I think that Charlie Jarrett was right here.
Yeah, and this is a time also where you go back and look and, criticism warranted, whether you think so or not, narrator voice it was for Klinsmann's picks for the World Cup team that year. But you leave Donovan off the World Cup team, Dempsey straight up becomes not even kind of, becomes the face of that team. He becomes that next guy up in a lot of people's eyes for the U.S. national team. And, you make it to the Belgium game, you get out of the group stage there because of, you conquered Ghana, then you play just an absolute bonkers match against Portugal, then you have the Germany game where you probably should have gotten blown out, but that's neither here nor there. He becomes that face as he's coming over here. And so I think it's not just, hey, he's a veteran national team player. He is the veteran national team player at that point. Yeah,
he's coming off of that World Cup. That's a really good point. We got a little bit of thunder and lightning hit.
Uh-oh.
DiMarzio has reported, and it's making the rounds. Fox Soccer has went with this as well. I thought I heard something off in the distance, and it was Nick Alifi screaming. Zlatan has said yes to AC Milan, and looks like they will be closing the deal very, very soon for Zlatan Ibrahimovic to wear the red and black stripes of Milan again.
Oh, man. So what are they going to do to a statue in Sweden in response?
Well, no, they didn't want him back. No, Malmo didn't want him anywhere near it. They might have a celebration that he's not coming to Sweden. So they are okay with this. I wonder how Milan found the money. I don't think they found it in the couch cushions to pay the man, because he did make $7 million plus last year in Los Angeles. So how's that going to look? And we'll see if he can do what he did with the Galaxy in Serie A. I'm curious. I mean, I think he can. I think the things he did here, he's capable of. I think the defending will be better. He's going to a league that is maybe the best defensively, so that's going to be an issue. You always wonder how the knee's going to hold up, because it ended up not being as much of an issue, especially last year for him in Los Angeles. But he is at an age where Father Time catches up at some point. Is it going to catch up now? Be curious to see how it goes.
And we've discussed this before. When Father Time catches up to you, it's generally not a slow saunter downhill. It's more of a cliff.
Not especially when you reconstruction too.
Yeah, and the higher, I think the higher you get into age while you're still on the cliff, the older you get, the steeper that drop off gets. When it starts going at 31 or so, it can be a little bit slower, but at 36, if it goes, it can be a lot more abrupt.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. So we will see. We'll see how this goes. The next tectonic shift in MLS is one that brought Zlatan to the league initially, ended up doing a designated player deal in year 2, but TAM. And Charlie says the acronym with afterburners, and I absolutely agree with this being on the list, because from a rule perspective in the league, this is the biggest one in the history of the league, let alone in the history of the last decade of the league. TAM changed the face of what an MLS team, an MLS roster, an MLS 11 could look like. It was just a massive addition to the league, and Zlatan's a prime example.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, and this for me, TAM, I don't know if Charlie did this in order, or if he just did it through the decade in order, starting in 2010, going through chronologically. So, but I mean, for me, this would be at or near the top of the tectonic shifts when it comes to these events. If you're just taking the events that Charlie put together chronologically, I would have this as my number one, because of what it allows teams to do, and bringing in talent and paying for talent and holding on to talent. So this, Jarrett, would have been my number one, if not my number two, if not my number one.
I just appreciate that MLS for a long time was basically playing an improv game of yes and, whenever we wanted to make changes to this league. So this was a big one, though. And yeah, it helped build that framework for a lot of these teams, not just Zlatan, but a lot of the teams you saw that built monster teams, TAM played a big role in that in terms of finding value and being able to buy guys down and being able to play a little with the salary cap.
So next on his list is 2017, and he mentions Atlanta and Toronto changing the paradigm. So 2017, Atlanta changed it, obviously, with the off the field as much as on the field in year one, and the excitement and the crowds and the vibe and all of it. Toronto changed it on the field by winning the first treble in league history. And yes, the Canadian Championship counts as part of that. It was not the competition it is now. It was a lot easier for Toronto to win it. They won it. They get credit for the treble. Dallas nearly did it the year before. They did 2 of the 3, but Mauro Diaz's injury going into the postseason was a massive issue for them. They couldn't win MLS Cup. 2017, maybe it's for me that it's just so close to now that it doesn't feel like that shift as a unit, like combining these two. It doesn't feel like that shift in the league. But in 10 years, when we're looking back going into 2030, maybe it will. It doesn't have that effect for me yet.
Does it feel for you like part of a shifting and not a shift? It's more of a present tense act that's still going on as opposed to a completed thing?
Well, I look at it, I mean, these two things, I think they're two separate things. I mean, Atlanta and what we've seen firsthand here with the culture and the supporters and the vibe feels like a little bit more of an evolution from what we saw in Toronto initially and in Seattle and in Cascadia as a whole, and just the maturation. I think the World Cup stuff actually had an effect on this too. Just the maturation of the league and American soccer in general, and Atlanta was a bit of the culmination of that. Toronto and what they did on the field is completely disconnected from that. I think Toronto is more of the next mega super club from the Galaxy. I think they're the next in that line. So I'd almost look at it as a couple different things here. I don't think 2017 as a year with both of these things happening is part of the tectonic shift. I think both are more evolution type of steps as opposed to shifts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I was. This is what happens when you leave out a proper noun as part of your ID. Is that I thought that I was looking at Atlanta as more of a present tense thing that was still going on, and Toronto's events as something that happened in that year. I was looking at one having been a completed act, and and then Jarrett, for me, Atlanta is still something that is an ongoing thing.
Yeah, I think they both are. I always have to remember with Toronto, you have the 2018 season where Toronto just had injury after injury, where at some points they're playing Michael Bradley on the back line out of necessity, and you come a penalty kick that is still flying through the low levels of the atmosphere somewhere over our heads, away from
geosynchronous orbit,
Champions League. Oh yeah. But you come a penalty kick away from winning CONCACAF Champions League, and then your entire backline gets decimated, and the whole season kind of goes to hell in a handbasket. You still throttle Atlanta at the end of the season in the last game, but then Toronto just goes out, gets Pozuelo, and just kind of rolls through the playoffs, punching people in the face over and over and over until they just run out of steam at the end against the Seattle team that just had it. But it's still very impressive for me what Toronto's put together. As far as Atlanta goes, I mean, I don't know how many times the story's been told at this point that it needs to be told again. You brought in the big name coach. You brought in the big name players, or actually not even. You brought in young, exciting players who became the big name players. The biggest name the most known name on that Atlanta United team from 2017 was probably Kenwyne Jones. And maybe Brad Guzan at the second half of the season, but it was a full shift, and it was creating stars as opposed to just bringing in established ones. Both of them can work. You just have to do them the right way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's more of the shift part of Atlanta for me than the crowd, the vibe. I think that's the evolution, but the shift in the way Atlanta constructed a team of going out and making stars, getting Miguel Almiron and spending the money for him, but Miguel Almiron was not a known quantity in the United States before that signing was announced. Joseph Martinez, same thing. Tito Villalba, same thing. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, same thing. Going out and getting guys and spending the money to get them and bringing them in and having them step up. And then, and this plays into the last shift in Charlie's piece that I think he left part of it out. He went with Bayern shelling out $13.5 million for Alphonso Davies. I would almost put the two together of Miguel Almiron and Alphonso Davies, and MLS being able to get 8-figure transfer fees outbound. And one was a player that developed in the Whitecap system, signed to a pro contract at 15. The other was a player that Atlanta United spent a large transfer fee to get, and then more than doubled it in their sale 2 years later, and showed that that's a different business model than we've seen in this league. That's the bigger shift for me than just Davies or Atlanta being part of a year that was a shift. I think the transfer portion and Atlanta building a team that then paid off with a championship, but also a large transfer. That's more of the story that maybe is the shift. And I think we'll probably find out pretty soon in this upcoming decade in MLS how many teams follow along that path.
Yeah, for me, it's half the story. Davies, for me, is half the story, and the other half being Miguel Almiron, who was sold to a Premier League side for twice what Davies was picked up for. So, no, I think that you're spot on, Jason. I think that, yes, Davies is a part of the story, but I think that Miguel is just as much a part of the story for how teams wanted to bring in talent and then send them on. One developed internally, one brought in and moved on, Jared. So, no, I think that, Jason, you're right. I think that Charlie's only telling half the story here.
I think it's two sides of the coin. It's because you have the Miguel thing, and I think it's an affirmation for Atlanta saying this works. We can go and spend what is considered a large amount of money for a player, continue his development, feature him, and then move him for a large profit. And then the Davies thing, I think you could have put them both there, but you do need to clarify them just because they're, again, it's two ways that can work in this league. You can go out and get those players, and we might see it pretty soon with LAFC going out and making moves and moving players around. And then you've got guys who are developing internally in the system, and you've seen the big move to Bayern when having that guy develop internally from the Whitecaps, which is about the only thing the Whitecaps have had go right for them in the decade, it feels like. But aside from that, you've got the other academies that are really developing. We know about Dallas. We know about Red Bulls. And I'm waiting to see who's the next to really get that going their way, where they have a young player develop like that and they move him for the 8-figure money. When does that come?
I think the idea of how Atlanta built their team is going to be one of the lasting legacies of this decade. I look overall, and I don't know if I'd put it to 7. I don't know if it'd be 5. I don't know if it'd be 10, like shifts in the league. But as a whole, like very big picture, not pulling out isolated moments, I think the way MLS does business has shifted dramatically from 2009 to 2019. Transfer fees being spent because there is a feeling of a return. That's something that would have never been considered in 2009. Going out and being able to get top young talent from South America, young talent, not old talent, but young talent. I don't think that would have been considered 10 years ago. The homegrown side of it, I mean, developing a player like Alphonso Davies, developing a player like Paxton Pomacall, it wasn't happening 10 years ago. So the way the business is done, the way teams are constructed, just the quality of play. I mean, you would expect that it would increase in a decade, but the leaps and bounds that MLS has increased with from 2009 to 2019, it's astounding when you get down to it. It's really, really big. I think the other shift is, you go back to the business side of it, the fact that you're getting MLS teams being sold for amounts that are on par with National Hockey League teams and maybe even some NBA teams and not far off from Major League Baseball teams. Like it's
and if you want in
that conversation.
Yeah. And if you want in, you're now paying $325 million instead of what you were paying a handful of years ago too.
Yeah, I mean that's all part of the growth, but just the fact that I'm not even putting it in terms of that. I'm putting it more in terms of you're on a different playing field now. You're putting it into a term of not just buying into a team that's at a price point that's, it's more than arena football, it's more than a minor league sports team, but it's not the NHL, which is part of the Big Four. Now you're getting MLS teams selling for amounts that are more than National Hockey League teams and are comparable with other members of the Big Four. The fact that it's not a Big Four anymore, that's a big change in the last decade from a business sense. It's huge. Something that jumps out to me here too, I think just the nature that the game and MLS doesn't feel as separate from the world's game anymore. It did 10 years ago. It doesn't now. And it gets brought home in different ways. I mean, the fact that we've talked about the Aberdeen move and we've talked about relationships and teams in Scotland and Europe and all over Europe dealing with MLS teams. And in this hemisphere, there was a great follow, if you're not following them on Twitter yet, is Depor Finanzas. They post a lot of different reports on engagement, on interaction, and social media across different sections, whether it's in the Americas, whether it's worldwide, whatever. They just posted their top 20 clubs in the Americas with the most interactions on Facebook during November. Now, remember, MLS ended in the beginning of November, so MLS teams not being in this is not a huge shock. Seattle is at number 20. But you look at the company that they're with. Tigres just ahead of them. Botafogo in Brazil. Sporting Cristal. Saprissa. Atlético Junior. Vasco da Gama. You've got the top teams in Brazil. You've got the top teams in Colombia. You've got Boca Juniors and River. And then you've got Club America and Chivas and Cruz Azul. MLS is just part of that conversation now. They're just part of the worldwide conversation of the sport. And 10 years ago, Jarrett, I don't think that was the case. It felt like it was, not quite Dungeons and Dragons, not quite, that underground, but it didn't feel like it was part of the worldwide soccer conversation like it is now.
Yeah, all this is just, all this growth is, it's wild, and I think you've had questions about, how sustainable is this growth? And look, I mean, I think it's sustainable. It's not necessarily going to be at the same level. You're not going to see, not every year is going to have the same insane growth amount on a year by year basis, but you'll still have growth. It doesn't have to always be, world changing growth. It can be a little bit at a time. It adds up over time, step by step.
We'll finish with two things.
If it's not,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So if it's not, revolutionary year by year going forward, doesn't mean there's still not growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the decade, when you look at the decade of growth, man, it feels like a different world with MLS in it now. A couple things as we finish up. Shiva asks, we had a lot of Argentine talent come into Atlanta in 2017-18. Do you see Atlanta investing more in Argentina or any part of South America? John, what do you think?
Oh, no doubt. I think that you're looking at places where you've had success. I mean, it's not going to be just one country or another, but I think you always go back and you're always looking for you're always looking in places where you found previous success, but at the same time, you're also looking to figure out where you can expand your reach and expand your growth. And then that goes back to with what we're seeing with the Atlanta United and Aberdeen and relationships that are beneficial. But that's a long answer to really a short one. So the answer for me is yes, dealing on past successes, but don't be surprised if it's more places than just Argentina.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily tied to Argentina. I think the difference that we could be seeing, and the rumor of a player like Villasanti is a prime example of this. The trajectory used to be for a player like Villasanti, because you go back, 3-4 years ago to Miguel Almiron, because he followed this trajectory. You're at a club like Cerro Porteño in Paraguay or Olimpia in Paraguay, one of the top Paraguayan clubs, and you've got to go to Argentina to make it, or to Brazil, maybe to Colombia. That was the next step for a player from a Paraguay. Ecuador too, Bolivia, the second-tier South American teams. You had to go to one of the big three leagues, but usually it was Argentina or Brazil. And that's what Miguel Almiron did, right? He went from Cerro Porteño to Lanús and then came to Atlanta and then to Europe. And now what you could be seeing, and I'll be curious to see if this is the case, if Villasanti comes to Atlanta, skips the Argentine step, comes to MLS, and then either decides to stay or move on to Europe if his progression continues at the pace that people think it could, are you going to see that drain a little bit on an Argentine league, on a Brazilian league? Brazil's got more money than the Argentine league, but are you going to see players decide, you know what, I could skip going there. Now MLS is at the level of getting me to come here first before the next big move. I think that could be happening, and I think the Miguel Almiron transfer shows it. So, I mean, you could have players come out of Argentina or the Argentine league, but I think you're just looking for the top talent in South America, period. And that's what you're going to be looking for more than just one country.
No, I'm right there with
talent
you.
Anywhere. Yeah, you're looking for talent anywhere. I think if you're always going to still look for Argentina, for Paraguay, for Peru, for Ecuador, for everywhere, South America, Central America, Europe, Greenland, even. If you're not looking somewhere, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing your club a disservice. And they're absolutely going to be looking everywhere. Just because Tata's not here anymore doesn't mean they're not going to be looking for talent from Argentina. Just because Frank's here doesn't mean they're just going to be looking for Dutch players and European players. They're going to look everywhere. It's part of the system. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't.
I don't think the scouts are big in Greenland, though.
I mean, there's got to be there's probably a good holding midfielder somewhere on the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica.
I don't know if they have the technical talent that you're looking for. They're going to have to invest a little bit in the development work in Greenland, and I don't know the Greenland League. I don't know how many teams are in it. I don't know what the development academies look like. Might take a little bit of work.
Well, that's our next project.
Yeah, no kidding.
That'll be on Soccer Over There at some point. We'll see about that. Also wanted to pass this along. If you didn't see our retweet, you didn't see Atlanta United's retweet. Very surprising news on it was Tuesday night. Edward Ashoff writes for ESPN, covered a lot of SEC football, but was an Atlanta United season ticket holder and a huge soccer fan. Passed away on his birthday on Christmas Eve. I never met Edward. I had a good friend who was very close with him, and I think they played soccer on like pickup teams and stuff together and talked soccer a lot. So a lot of people, whether it's Atlanta United fans or people in the journalism industry, are really feeling it with this. It was completely unexpected. I believe pneumonia was the cause, and something he had been struggling with for a little while. Definitely a shock this time of year to see that. And
Jeff Darlington, for those that might not have seen his tweet this morning. He reprinted an email from Ed Ashoff when he was a student, and he was, I think, halfway through his sophomore year at Florida. And he wanted some advice from Jeff about where to go. And he had explained what he was doing and basically said that he loved to write and wanted some advice from Jeff and some folks who were at ESPN just trying to figure out what to do with his next steps. And he was a guy who was universally liked, and he always made sure that when you were at an event, you knew who Ed Ashoff was because of how he was dressed. And the socks were part of the Natalie attired Ed Ashoff. And so universally liked and loved and respected, and gone far too soon at 34.
Yeah, he kept his Atlanta United season tickets. He moved to L.A. covering things for ESPN, but he kept his season tickets. I know he was in the building for MLS Cup in 2018. I think he moved out to L.A. early that year. So, sad day for anything in sports journalism, but Atlanta United fans as well. And, I mean, Gustavo, I thought, kind of nailed it, because this is how it does feel when it comes to Atlanta United. Is, if you're an Atlanta United supporter, you're part of the family, and
yeah,
it is very connected. It's more connected than you might think. So everybody's kind of feeling this one. Shame to see. And the things that that letter is something that I take away from this. And I was in that boat of you're just trying to find your way to do things and be involved in it. You know kind of what you want to do, but you might not know exactly how to get there and how to do it and how to get the door open. And it's something that, no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in life, when you have something that you're passionate about and you have something that you feel like is your calling, find your way to explore it and go for it. Find your pathway for it. That's something you can take from this. I think, hopefully it's something that we were taking before, but it's something I think that you must remember now, and hopefully that's a strong part of Ed's legacy.
Yeah, no doubt. And you're reminded, and it's just follow your passions. And I think that's another lesson in all of this. And follow your passions and find your way to do it, Jarrett. That's something that we're incredibly fortunate to do in a bunch of different ways. But sadly, it's times like this where we're reminded about the love for things that we do, and chasing after it, and making sure that we grab a hold of it and don't let go.
Yeah, it's it kind of does fit that family atmosphere of people who, kind of, whether they're public figures or not, who become public to fans and their significance to the fan base. And it's, even whether it's public or not, it sucks when stuff like this happens. But, yeah, it sucks. There's really not much else to go on aside from that, other than, everybody reaching out, sharing their stories, and grieving in their own ways. And I guess at some point it's annoying, but you kind of just after all that's said and done, it kind of turns into what do we do next? I think, and I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, nobody does, but that's the one that I'm taking out of something like that. What you do next is, I think, to chase your dreams and chase. Ed got a chance to chase those for quite a while, and I think there were a lot more out there for him, and it's on everybody to do that and to go out and chase what your dreams are and try to make those things happen and leave your imprint. That's what we all get the opportunity to do, and Ed did a great job of it for far too short of a period of time. Our condolences to him and his friends and family and his fiance. And obviously, yeah, we pass along all that stuff. But yeah, it's just a rough day
for those of us who do this for a living, but for Atlanta United fans and all this kind of stuff. But no, it's seconded what you got there, Jason. No doubt about it.
All right, Jarrett, are you back to work tomorrow, or are you able to hang out a little bit again?
I'm probably back at work tomorrow.
Boo.
Yeah.
Well, it was good that you didn't torture any cats during the show. That's always fun.
Washing dishes?
There's always next time.
Yeah, no, there is always next time. That's for sure. We will be hearing from you. No crumpets and espresso during the festive fixture period because it's just so chaotic. We'll be back with that next week, and we'll be hearing from you there, and hopefully hearing from you more in 2020, one way or another. We're going to figure this out.
Always. Yeah.
Somehow. I don't know what we're going to have to do to get you cut away at times to be able to join us from time to time, but we're going to do this.
Well, and we can also talk about the Greenlandic Football Championship, where there are 10 teams in one period.
That's your project. I think it's more like 2 teams.
There we go.
There's like 2 teams and like 30 players in Greenland.
Well, the polar bears make up their own team. They keep winning.
You don't want to play them.
No
in
one's
the
really
cup
arguing with them.
That gets out of hand.
Yeah.
B67
Take a snack break every 20 minutes.
Has the most championships at 13.
Well, you guys will compare notes on that. We'll have a report on the Greenland FA and the Greenland First Division League and League Cup and Cup competition and Super Cup and all those things. We won't have that tomorrow, though. We will have a normal show tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Mike Conti will be joining us on the show. We'll talk more about silly season because with the Zlatan de Milan stuff, you're going to get silly season worldwide, but you're also going to get more silly season in MLS, I would expect. So we'll be back in the morning to talk about it. Mucha plata, y'all.
Oh, so much for waiting for. I was going to say so much for waiting for Jared. We're out of practice. Mucha new computer, y'all.
Mucha new computer, mucha plata, mucha new year, y'all.